Okay, welcome back to Daily Driven Alpha. Right, today we're going to take you through having a look at the doors that we've put some 2-pack epoxy on, and we're going to get the surface down a little smoother so that we can have another look at some of the areas that we've already marked up as being low. We've already done one door today and found we've got a heap of work to do in this area. So while we've done some of the initial metal work and some of the filler, and then we sealed it with a 2-pack epoxy, the hard work comes now, in this stage, to try and finesse it and make sure that we've got as many of the imperfections out on these big curved surfaces as possible before we put it on the car, and then do the final sort of body line fit up and also the surface finishing. Now, on my previous coupe, I was in a rush to get it done, and I wasn't so fussed about making sure that everything was perfect. It looked pretty good when we finished at this stage and we painted it. So as a result today, when I've got the car out in certain light, a lot of people can't see it, but I can, and people who do restorations and do paintwork see it straight away. We can see some of the ripples and some of the imperfections as you look down the side of the car in different light. So these big surfaces, once you get paint on them, they're very unforgiving. So that's one of the reasons we wet sand these, and today we're just going to use some soapy water, a little bit of household detergent in the bucket of water, cloth, using a hard sponge foam that's got a little bit of a curve in it from the way we've been holding it, and we're just using some wet and dry 600 sandpaper. So whatever you've got in your part of the world that's similar. Now you might use a different grit paper. We're just using 600 because we're not too worried about being a little aggressive with this paintwork at this stage. And as some of the channels say, and there's one channel we watch in particular around paintwork, it's only paint. So don't worry if you get it wrong or you go through, you can always put another layer of paint on. So now, some of the tips that we just want to pass on to those of you who haven't done this, and by no means are we professionals. These are the lessons that we've learned as we do this paintwork. So you know, we're always happy to receive constructive comments and other tips from other people. Some of those we've incorporated into our restoration already. As with any of the work that you do on your panels, when you're doing your filler and you work in a crosshatch or a diagonal approach, going backwards and forwards across these panels, without pushing down hard into them, you let the actual sandpaper and the block do the work itself. With this approach, when you're wet sanding, do the same thing. Let it glide, and this is why we use a little bit of the detergent in the water as well, because that helps lubricate the surface and stops the sandpaper from just grabbing and sticking. So we just go gently across, float it across, let the sandpaper do the work, and once again you can do that in a crosshatch diagonal way. Some of the areas to look out for are along here, along these body lines. They naturally, because it's a ridge, they naturally end up with less paint on them because the paint tends to flatten off and run off those edges. So whenever you're doing paint work, we always try and lay a little bit more on those ridge lines and the body lines just to get good coverage on them. But at this time when you're sanding, sometimes you can put some tape across that if you want to, use an automotive masking tape to help protect those lines. We haven't done that today, and I'm just easing off as I get to the edge of them, making sure that I'm not putting too much pressure on them, because I really don't want to strip the paint off there. So by going through this, you can get a good look at what the surface is like. You'll notice that we've laid down some black plastic over our bench today, and I've jacked up an edge of the bench so that I've got a natural fall for the water, and I've put some old cardboard down to soak up the water that comes off this. Because what you're doing is you're actually getting water mixed with paint that's going to go onto your floors, so if you want to try and keep your shop tidy and you don't want to stain the floors, it's a lot easier if you put stuff down first and then throw that out afterwards. So as they say, the job's not done until you've cleaned up, and we try and minimise as much cleaning up as possible because the fun part's doing the job, right? So regularly turn the sandpaper, clean the sandpaper, even change the sandpaper, and give it a nice wipe down. And when you do that, you can have a good look down the reflection here. And I've just set up a light behind the camera here, just on our shop fan, nothing fancy, just to give me that angle so that I can use it to get a real look. Now, even though it's wet, just get your pencil, and as soon as you find places through the water, mark them up. They're low spots, and what that does is it also helps you, while you're sanding, not to go in and be tempted to try and dig those out. Right? Don't try and fix it by sanding it. That's pretty good. That's not too bad. This door is much better than the last door that we did. Our other door has had some, it's been folded forward once in its life, where the door check strap obviously had broken, and there was a crease right here at the front. You'll see a lot of these doors, these long doors, get damaged here. So there's areas to have a look at. These curved surfaces, be mindful as too with those, so you don't end up pushing hard and putting a flat spot into the paintwork there. Sort of, from my perspective, I tend to just let my wrist roll naturally with the flow. Now, as you'll have seen on our channel, and by no means do we claim to be professionals, you know, we're just like the rest of you guys. We're car guys, car restorers, and we learn as we go, and we take tips from other professionals and incorporate them. And I guess we just share stuff that works for us. There's lots of different ways of doing it. Sometimes we found we've been doing it the hard way until we find someone shows us an easier way, or we find it ourselves. So, that's okay. But that's looking good. It's nice. Wow. I'm going to start to have a look down the angles. And by putting water on the door and allowing it to flatten out, it's almost like having a paint surface that's been on the car. You get that gloss and that reflection, and immediately you can get to see where the issues are. That's not too bad. Another tip while you're doing this, if you know, rather than just using a cloth, you can use the edge of your foam just to squeegee the water off, and that gives you a good look at the surface, the dry surface, pretty quickly. It gives you an idea of how the score marks are and what condition and how far in you're going. I'm going to start stopping here because I'm starting to feel as though I'm getting into the paint to a degree. So that's going to be it. Now that's a very short amount of time for sanding. But I've sanded this a couple of times today. I've come back to it, let it sit, and then come back, and I've been doing some other work, some other fill work on the body of the coupe, where some of the previous work that we'd done we weren't that happy with. So I've just marked up some areas with pencil on this door, and I'll come back to those and have a look at them. But that's nice. That's brought up a really nice flattened surface, and really helps you have a look at where things are. We've still got some issues here in the door with some bubbles from filler. Now, don't be tempted to try and solve that issue at this stage of the game. You can get that with some glazing putty later. Don't try and sand into it, just leave them alone. And when you've got the door on the car, you know, that's when you'll be able to spend a bit more time making sure that you've got those shut lines right, and that as you look down the car, you're happy with the surfaces. The only bit of advice I've got on this, and this is based on my prior experience where I rushed two doors that on my daily driver, which is the GT Veloce, and I rushed the doors, and I thought, like right now, I thought that's good enough. It'll be okay. We'll paint it, or drop a couple of heavy coats of paint on, and then we'll block and colour sand it back. The surfaces are very unforgiving, these big panels, and once you've got paint on it, you see all of those imperfections a mile away. So, so the doors on my car, even though the car looks really good, when you get close and you look at it critically, you start to see issues. So, if you're just going to do a cosmetic job on the car, and you're not too fussed, fine, you know, but it will show. The other thing too is, with these doors, these are in very good condition, and what we found is that the door frames themselves and the inside of these doors, especially up in this area here, it's very hard to see what's in there because they're sort of folded over the door skins. You can't actually get to parts of the frame internally, so you've got no idea what levels of corrosion are there. If your door has had impact, and this is just my advice, if you've got a door that's got a lot of issues in it, and you're doing a lot of metal work, or you're going to have to do a lot of metal work and a lot of body work, it may be better to go and get yourself a couple of door skins from the likes of Classic Alfa, ship them over, and then all you do is you take a grinder to the edges of these doors here, and you gently grind just the outside steel away until you can see the frame underneath there, and then you peel these skins off. Now, if you're going to do that, and this is based from previous experience, I would suggest that you get a little bit of flat steel on these doors here, and you cross brace them. Just tack it on across and cross brace the frame so it doesn't warp or move on you. What you'll find is there'll be some lateral movement from the base of the door, because the skin offers a lot of the structure, and it'll save you a bit of effort when you're putting the door skins back on. But when you do that, you get the opportunity to address any rust issues or any of the internal areas of the doors. And especially if this is a car that you're going to keep for a long time, or you're wanting to do a restoration that is absolutely 100% well done. So we did that because we had rust coming through from a so-called restorer who gave us the car back, and then we found we had issues and we had to pull it apart and start doing it ourselves. But it gave us the opportunity to blast the frame and clean it all up inside, 2-pack epoxy it, paint it, seal it all up, and then put the door skins on, so we know the inside of the doors are going to go the distance. I love these doors. They are a long door, they're a good looking door, they've got nice complex curves in them. I love the way the door handles sit in them. So spend the time on these and try and get them as perfect as you can, because these are nice big mirrors once you get the paint on them, and they really set the car off well if you've done them right. So today, working on this little project car, these doors are in relatively good condition. It's just all the finer work that we're doing. So it's actually a pleasure to work on these doors as opposed to others that we've got. And as you'll see with our GT1300 Junior, the rusty wreck, that's going to be a mission and a half when we finally get to it. But I hope this has kept some interest and helps you with any of your projects that you're doing. If you've got any constructive commentary and you've got any tips, please feel free to share them with us. We're happy to receive them. We enjoy chatting to you all, and we hope all your projects are going well. Once again, like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you've got other friends or other people who are interested in Alfas and they haven't been to our channel, please encourage them to come and share our journey here in Queensland, Australia, and get them to subscribe. It helps us on our little journey. And we thank you very much for watching, and look forward to seeing you on the next post. Thanks a lot.